Today I'm going to show you how to break down the hindquarter of a bear into roasts and steaks. Although I'm going to turn both of these two hindquarters into breakfast sausage this time. But I wanted to show you how to do the roasts and steaks. And then I'm actually going to end up cutting them up into to grind them for breakfast sausage. But people have been asking for this, so I'm going to basically show you how to cut up the main muscle groups into roasts, and then if you want you can slice them into steaks. So let's get started. So these two hindquarters are off of a bear that was just under 200 pounds, a pretty average sized bear. And the first thing I'm going to do here is trim off all this extra fat. And I've got some dried meat here too that I'm going to trim off the edges so it's all fresh meat on the edges here. Okay, the first cut I'm going to make on this is I'm going to separate the muscle groups right along here. So I'm basically following this femur bone here, and I'm going to cut off this whole area right here. This thing has such nice white fat, it's just beautiful. Okay, this is a round, and it would make a great roast just as it is. You can trim up the fat a little bit better, or you can separate this. It's still partially frozen a little bit, but you could actually separate this into two distinct muscle groups here. I guess I'll try to do it. I'm not sure how well it's going to work. So I thought it was more thought out when I started, but see if I can find the seam there. Alright, so this is distinct muscle groups here. This is trim. I'm going to make a lot of trim into breakfast sausage. But you could also take and just steak this up. As you can see, it makes a really good roast, but you could also grill these steaks. So I'm going to go ahead and steak it up. And I don't know, I might actually, well, here's these two muscle groups that have quite a bit of fat in between them. Boy, they look so good right now that I kind of hate to grind them all up into breakfast sausage, but that's what I'm looking forward to, some biscuits and gravy. So now the other side of this femur bone, now you have this big muscle right here, which is the sirloin tip, and I am going to just trim off this loose meat here. It'll make good grinding meat, and then I'll show you how to take this sirloin tip off of here. A little more fat there I want to get out of there. So I usually just, this is the knee right here, and I usually just cut right down through that to the bone, and then trim out the bone. And we're going to cut right straight across right there, and then just pull it and trim around the bone. There's more grinding meat right here. And there's your sirloin tip. which is a really good roast. That's about probably not quite 2 pounds, a pound and a half or so. And on a bigger bear, of course, it would be quite a bit bigger, but that right there makes a really good roast. And then also, if you look at these steaks, man, they're terrific. Really good steak meat there. If you like to grill bear steaks, those are really good. And this roast, I typically put in a crock pot. And I think I've got a video on this channel about how to do a bear roast in a crock pot. You can also cut this up for stew meat. I got a video about that as well. Then we're going to take the shank and just peel all this meat off the shank, and what little bit is left here, you can see there's a little bit left on there. That'll be grinding meat. That's basically how I break down a quarter. So you have 2 roasts, or you can cut them up into steaks, or you can just do the whole thing into grinding here. And I'm going to show you how I make the breakfast sausage. Okay, I did decide to keep a couple roasts. They just look so good. So I ended up with, that's 12 pounds, a little over 12 pounds of trimming. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 3 pounds, so that's about 25% of bacon ends and pieces. And you can buy them in 3-pound packages. Sometimes you can buy them in a box or whatever, or you can just get bacon. This is a lot cheaper way to do it. Okay, so I'm going to cut this up and mix that in, and then we'll go with the spices. Okay, the spices that I'm using today are a German breakfast sausage seasoning, and this one happens to be made by Cabela's. There's other companies that make a similar German breakfast sausage seasoning. For example, I think High Mountain Seasoning. They've got several different breakfast sausage seasonings. And if you like Johnsonville sausages, this has that kind of a taste to it. But unfortunately with this Cabela's one, you have to buy the whole kit. And all I want to use is the seasoning packet. But it also comes with the hog casings and stuff like that, which I'm not making links. I'm just making loose sausage that I can make into patties and fry. But this does 25 pounds. I'm going to use a little over half of it probably. And I'll just put it on there like that. Probably a little bit more. And then one thing I do, not everybody does this, is add some water to it. It just makes it easier. And I'm not going to add very much, but I don't know, that's probably about a cup. You can tell I really like to measure things and so they're exact. But now we're going to mix this all together and mix it up really good. And we're going to grind it twice. Once through a coarse plate and once through a fine plate. Alright, all that's left now is to wrap it in 1-pound packages and also sample it. Of course, I'm going to go in and eat some of it right away because it looks and smells so good. And as you can see, if you haven't done bears before, they have a much different texture than other kinds of meat like beef and pork, and it's a little more like pork but not very much, and it definitely has a different taste flavor than any other kind of animal. And I'm pretty diligent about taking the majority of the fat off of it, but it's pretty well marbled, and the fat is much sweeter. It's more like a pork fat than deer. You know, if you're used to wild game and you're used to eating deer, sometimes the fat can be really gamey. That's typically not the case with bears, especially ones that have been baited with trail mix and pastries and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful to you. I really appreciate you watching. I'm sorry the lighting is so bad in here, but at any rate, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.